Welcome to Headlines, the news you might have missed, delivered fast. In world news, Greece's extreme right-wing neo-Nazi party, the Golden Dawn, has been labelled a criminal organisation by judicial authorities after one of its members stabbed to death an anti-fascist rapper by the name of Killer P. The Golden Dawn went from being a fringe party of crazies to scooping 7% of the popular vote in the 2012 elections. They now have 18 seats in the Greek parliament. Not surprising for a fascist party, they rose to influence on the back of the Greek debt crisis, despite, or perhaps because of, their extremely violent xenophobic manifesto. The party leader and several other Golden Dawn members of parliament have been arrested for belonging to a criminal organisation. And of course, it raises the pretty important question of whether outlawing a fascist political party is in itself a pretty fascist measure. An American man that has been in solitary confinement for 41 years has finally had his sentence overturned. But don't get too excited, because the US Justice Department waited until he had terminal cancer before granting the pardon, despite there having been 160 reviews of the decision since 1972. Herman Wallace was serving time in a Louisiana state prison when he was convicted of killing a prison guard and thrown into indefinite solitary confinement. Numerous irregularities with the trial have been raised, including the fact that there was no physical evidence that tied Wallace to the crime. Women were systematically excluded from the grand jury that convicted him, and one witness received a pardon in exchange for his testimony. For those 41 years, Wallace was confined to a 2 by 3 metre cell for 23 hours a day. The 7 hours he had to himself per week were spent either showering or in solitary recreation. But that's not the worst of it. Another man was convicted alongside Wallace, and he remains in solitary confinement. To news that has bioethicists around the world very worried, a company in the US by the name of 23andMe has been granted a patent that will allow parents to choose the genetic traits of their children. On the company's checklist are eye colour, muscle development, personality traits, and predisposition to diseases such as cancer. Quite morbidly, the company says that parents will be able to select such things as whether the child has a long lifespan, the expected cost of healthcare over the course of their life, or the cumulative duration of hospitalisation. Unfortunately, nowhere has there been any mention of being able to purchase superpowers. In case there's anyone out there with a skerrick of interest about the Australian election, Green Senator Scott Ludlam and Sports Party candidate Wayne Droplich have both missed out on a Senate place in WA. A request of the Electoral Commission for a recount has been denied, despite the fact that the parties missed out on a place by as little as 14 votes. Now, Ludlam raises a good point. For a House of Representatives seat, if the winning margin is less than 100 votes, an automatic recount is triggered. This is not so for the Senate. And because there's no end to this Australian election, Ludlam and Droplich are going to appeal the AEC's decision. How much do you love your money? A US Department of Treasury has sent a man a cheque to replace 5 $100 bills that were eaten by the man's dog. The man deserves the money. For the few days following the poocher's misdeed, he trailed his puppy dog, Sundance, collecting its poop so that he could lovingly reconstruct the notes before sending them off to Treasury. It's times like these I wish I had a knack for puns, because this is one of those rare occasions that it actually feels appropriate.